I th- I think that it was Peter Lynch who popularized the idea, at least in the context of finance, that you needed a very simple 2 minute storyline to be able to fully understand and justify your ownership of a stock. Um, I mean, I certainly heard it from him for the first time, and it made me think quite a lot about what it meant and why was what was that the case? Why is it that you really have to boil down the essence of your understanding of a stock in a 2 minute storyline? And if anything, the reason I really kind of like thought about is that actually there's a few things. If there are many reasons why you think that a stock is going to grow in the future, you inevitably end up thinking in terms of complex causal web of interrelated factors, and it's just really a bad thing when you want to invest in a stock because you can never really go back to the moment you have this kind of like aha moment, like, oh, okay, I get it, that's why my foundational understanding of that stock requires me to invest in it. Another way that I think about it is that when you invest in a stock, it's very often, except it's a turnaround story where you have a company that's going really, really bad. The stock is going in a downward spiral. The price is going, to zero. And something that other people don't know or are clearly overlooking. And the reality is that most of the stock that you're going to pick are stocks that are going to go up, and you come up with reasons why you believe the stock is going to keep going up. And when the stock inevitably comes back to lower level and starts crashing, 20, 30, 50%, you need to go back to this original story, this original, first principle understanding of why is it that you invested in the stock in the first place. Quick reminder that I may or may not have a stake in the companies that I'm going to be talking about, and none of it is financial advice. I have a disclaimer at the beginning of this course. Please read it, watch it, and understand that I'm talking about all of this from a perspective of trying to teach a few things, but I am not trying to incentivize or nudge anybody to invest in any of the stocks that I'm going to be discussing today. Now, I like to start with Live Nation because I understand very well the entertainment space. This is, it goes without saying that the more you understand an industry, the more you're going to understand the stock operating in that industry, and the more likely it is that you're going to build a coherent narrative around that stock and its growth that, with your mental compass close to what's really happening on the ground in terms of where the company is heading. So the story with Live Nation is one of very exciting times, I would say, and just like whenever I start building up that narrative, that stock narrative, I always like to start with a little report that I generate. You can basically use any of your deep research tool. You can use ChatGPT. You can use any other AI to come up with that initial profile on the company. I use Gemini Deep Search. That's the tool that I really like to use, and I have my own fully developed and tuned script that I've been using for a while. It took forever to develop it, but at the end of the day, you want to tune it to the point where all the relevant information that you believe allow you to reach that story should be included in it. The reason why I start with this deep research is that I want to have a wide understanding of a few different sub narratives of the company before I fully zoom in on one of these narratives and start digging deep. The way that you can really dig deep and build that narrative is, by yourself, if you understand the company and the industry really, really well, or by doing interviews and talking to a bunch of people who do understand that company and industry really, really well. And me, when I started with Live Nation Entertainment, I started really understanding that they have a very, very strong revenue growth narrative and kind of like a mixed revenue narrative, right? Like, what's going to be the evolution of that revenue in terms of what are the different income streams that are going to be generating that revenue. And if you don't know Live Nation, well, what these guys do is pretty simple. They generate most of their revenues from concerts, ticketing, and sponsorships and advertising. The concerts it's a very complex industry. It has many different players, all interrelating on different functional activities, from sponsoring, venue management, artists management, distribution rights. There's a lot to understand in concerts, but the fundamental idea here is that Live Nation is really, really well positioned in that industry and generate a huge bulk of money from these concerts. And then they have their own ticketing platform, which is a fantastic way to produce a steady stream of revenue. Ticketing is a very low risk activity. It's a very simple technology that allows you to provide a very commoditized service. But when you combine ticketing with the existing ecosystem of concerts, essentially what Live Nation has is what you could call a vertically integrated flywheel. Well, the more you are integrated in this industry, so the more you have access to top quality artists that you can put in top quality venue, that you can monetize through ticketing, and that you can successfully, let's say, sponsor and broadcast and distribute at a relatively low marketing cost. So in other words, with a good ROAS, the more you start becoming a de facto player in that industry. And the whole argument here is that Live Nation has been operating in that space for a while. They have built a very, very strong networks of venues that they have either ownership in their portfolio of kind of like staked ownership of real estate, or that they have first right of refusal for certain dates. I mean, this is a fantastic asset to have, right? This network is really, really important. It's kind of like step zero. If you cannot have the right venue, you cannot distribute your concerts. And because you have these venues, and these venues are very often tied or have very strong partnership links with certain sponsors and with certain artists, it naturally follows that Live Nation is put in touch very, very quickly to these artists and these sponsors. And again, this really leads to a virtuous cycle, because it's really hard for a player to kind of like attack each of these individual components and try to come up with terms that are so beneficial that a venue, a concert, a sponsor would be willing to risk jeopardizing their relationship with Live Nations. I really cannot think of a potential profitable term sheet that would allow any of the upcoming players to do that. And this is why, if you kind of like try to do a sum of the parts analysis, it usually fails. It's usually very, very hard to disentangle every component. You can try to do it, so you could try to value the ticketing and the concerts and all these segments with a growth narrative around expanding in new geolocations, for instance, going in Latin America. I mean, you can try to do all this kind of stuff, and it is gonna lead to very likely positive upside on the share price. But the real narrative is not this sum of the part analysis. The real narrative is really understanding that flying wheel. And now, with all of this said, the one reason why I would not invest in Live Nation is precisely because I don't believe in that flywheel narrative. So I know that I explained it, but I'll tell you what I think, what is the kind of like the most important component that I believe Live Nation is missing. I think that they are not doing a great job on the media side. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of these media distribution channels are not fully dominated by Live Nation. They are present, they have a presence, they have collaborations. They are heavily investing in it, but I do not believe that they have a super strong lock-in in that space, in the media space. Now, why do I say that, and how can we objectively, evaluate that? I mean, it is really, really hard, and I'm just talking about experience, being in that space for a while. What you could do is you could essentially just go and study their media profile and try to study engagement, and really any media expert would look at Live Nation and see, okay, they have a very strong following, 955K followers, but really if you spend a bit of time trying to study their actual initiatives on YouTube, their engagement, their collaborations with artists and all of that, I do believe that it's quite weak, and especially if your main narrative is going to be built on this flywheel effect, which again, I don't doubt on every other component, so on the concerts, on the ticketing, on the sponsorship. I really don't doubt that, and if you do your homework on the company, you would really find out how strong it is. But on the media side, I do perceive a very small weakness, and that is enough for me to not be very bullish on the company. So that's why I meant by the 2-minute storyline. Here, this is an actual storyline about me not investing in the stock, where I think that a lot of the story checks out on many, many components, and I do think that the company is very, very strong. If you link back to the financial analytics series that we were doing before, it checks out on a lot of the financial components, the financial metrics that you need to have to be able to have confidence in that stock. But on the narrative side, this is my main problem with Live Nation.